Let's explore fantasy versus reality. Every affair at some level exists inside a constructed world. It is not entirely false, but it is not fully real either. It is a space where certain parts of life are carefully included, and the others are completely absent. There are no unpaid bills, no routines worn thin by repetition, no shared responsibilities demanding attention. What remains is a distilled version of connection, focused, intense, emotionally charged. And that is exactly what gives it power. It is not burdened by ordinary life, and that absence makes it feel exceptional. But fantasy is not accidental. It is built, shaped by longing, by unmet desires, by the parts of you that have been waiting to be seen. In this space, people become different versions of themselves, more attentive, more expressive, more curious. They listen more closely. They ask more questions. They want to talk. Respond more thoughtfully, and reveal only what strengthens the connection. And the other person is also seen through a filter. Flaws are minimized or removed. Complexities are overlooked. Compatibility is amplified. Qualities are appreciated and amplified too. The relationship becomes less about who they truly are and more about what they represent. Because desire needs distance. Familiarity and desire do not grow the same way. In long-term relationships, closeness brings stability, but it reduces mystery. Daily life replaces anticipation. Predictability replaces discovery. But distance does something absolutely different. It creates space for imagination. Not knowing everything allows the mind to fill in the gaps. And those gaps are often filled with ideal versions. The affair lives in that space, not just in what is real, but what is imagined, what is heightened, what is expected, what is hoped. And the less the reality enters, the more powerful the fantasy becomes. In this world, there is also an edited self. You yourself are not fully yourself, but a refined version that you present yourself. And the same with your partner, the affair partner. Insecurities are softened. Qualities are amplified, exaggerated. The best version of oneself is only what comes forward. Responsibilities are none. Struggles are shared carefully to present the best version of one's own self, often in ways that invite empathy, but not complexity. And this is not always intentional. It is natural, a form of self-curation. You show who you want to be and not always who you consistently are. And that feels good because the connection becomes reaffirming. You feel like a lot better version of yourself. But fantasy has another defining feature: the absence of consequences. There are no real pressures, no financial stress, no day-to-day struggles, no tensions, relationship tensions, pulls, pressures, no long-term decisions, no daily negotiations, nothing that truly tests the connection. And because of that, it feels easier, natural, fulfilling, but it has never been tested. It exists in a suspended state where everything is ideal, the best foot put forward, a facade, something that is not true, that is not real, that is not consistent. Everything feels possible because nothing has been challenged. Fantasy also allows projection. You begin to place meaning onto the other person. They become more than what they really are. They represent something: freedom, validation, youth, a lost version of yourself. And this deepens the attachment because now it is not just about them. It is about what they mean to you, about the life they seem to offer. But then there is also a reality. The primary relationship exists in full reality. It includes history, conflict, compromise, growth. It requires effort, patience, consistency. It reveals both strengths and flaws. Over time, you see each other fully, and that completeness can feel less exciting. There is nothing new to discover, but it is real. It is grounded, tested, built over time. The problem is not that reality is lacking. The problem is comparison. Because reality is being compared to a fantasy, to something that was never fully real. And that comparison is unfair. Because fantasy has never faced the same conditions. But emotionally, it feels valid. And that is where dissatisfaction begins. Not because the relationship failed, but because it is being measured against an illusion. It is being compared to a fantasy. At some point, fantasy meets reality. It always does. More time is needed. More honesty is required. More presence is expected. And suddenly things change. Differences appear. Expectations shift. The ease fades. And complexity enters. The other person now becomes human, with flaws, with needs, with limitations. The things that were hidden before come forth. You see the person, the real person, as they are. And what once felt effortless now requires effort. the illusion of perfection fades and something more real takes its place. And this can feel confusing, even disappointing, because the feeling now has changed. But what really changed was the lens. The illusion is no longer protecting the connection. And one of the most damaging effects of fantasy is the comparison that it leaves behind. The real relationship now feels lacking, incomplete, insufficient, not because it is, but because it is being compared to something incomplete, something curated, an illusion, a fantasy, something that is protected from reality. And this distortion creates distance, dissatisfaction, disconnection with the primary relationship. But when you understand this, it changes everything, because it allows you to see clearly. The feelings were real, but the environment was not complete. Fantasy is not meaningless. It reveals something. It shows what you long for, what feels missing, what has been unspoken. And when you see that clearly, you gain something powerful: choice. You can bring back that awareness into your real life, in your real relationship. You can have the same connection in your primary relationship. You can use it to grow, to reconnect, to change what needs attention. Because the goal is not to reject the experience, it is to understand it, to see it for what it is, without illusion, without distortion. Because the real question is not, did it feel real? It did. It probably did. The real question is, can this relationship survive reality? Can it survive the moment out of fantasy? Can this relationship last in the real world? If it was the primary relationship. Because anything that exists only in ideal conditions will not survive real life. Reality does not destroy true connection. It only reveals what it truly is. And what remains after the illusion fades is what is it really. What can be built? What can last? Everything else is only imagination. And eventually every person faces a choice between what is imagined and what is lived. Fantasy offers intensity, escape, possibility. Reality offers depth, stability, truth. Neither is wrong, but they are not the same. And the danger is when one is mistaken for the other. Because once you see the difference clearly, you are no longer stuck between these two worlds. You are standing in one with a decision. Which one do you want? Not about what feels better in that moment, but what can really sustain a life.